various types of projects. And there we came across something called diversification. I'm just giving you a brief background, then I'll proceed. So diversification, we have seen there are classifications of diversification also. Like we have horizontal diversification, vertical diversification, concentric and conglomerate diversification. In that, of course, we found that this vertical diversification is interesting in the sense that the companies can move towards either backwards or forwards to either acquire or to have their own subsidiaries or maybe own companies which deals with the functions which happens in the product line or production line, either in the backward or in the forward direction. So any project which is taken up with that intention, can anyone tell me? Okay, that's what. Because I don't know when I got disconnected. All right, let me. Okay. So yes. So these are the reasons. I hope I have discussed what are the reasons why backward integration takes place. Let us move ahead and discuss these examples. So some of the examples of backward integration is like, these are real life examples, like Ford Motor Company. So they used to have their own subsidiaries to supply their materials inputs like rubbers, glass and metals, right? The reason is that will improve the quality of the product and reliability and timely delivery of the product. So their manufacturing will not be affected by the suppliers, right? So they have their own companies which can supply these things. So this is one example. Similarly, in the forward direction, a company like Disney, they have their own retail stores to sell the merchandise and other products, digital products. And this is an example of forward integration. Right? There are many companies nowadays, they are handling their own retailing, distributing and after sales service. So that way it is moving forward. Similarly, there are few more examples, like again these are real examples. Again, there is a furniture giant called IKEA. They have acquired recently in 2020 a startup called Geomagical Labs. Right, that lab used to provide some AI imaging facility service to the furniture giant, furniture company IKEA. Right now, with time, they might have thinking that why to take service of this company because it is useful. Why not to acquire it? So this is moving backwards because see whether it is some physical raw material or maybe some kind of service. For example, in this case, it is a service, right? Some IT service. So you can acquire that company by moving backward, so that you will get all the advantages of that. So this is one of the big examples. Similarly, this company called Apple, these companies like Apple and Tesla, they used to have try to have all the ownership, the whole value chain, starting from the manufacturing till the sales and after sales service. So they try to capture all the supply chain or the value chain. So Apple is the best example. They have their own manufacturing distribution channel, right? There is no middleman. So they use both backward and forward integration projects. Apple, even Tesla. Amazon is also in recent time is trying to have their own manufacturing. Of course, they started as a simple e-commerce company, as just a link between manufacturing and customer. But of late, they have started their own manufacturing. You can find many Amazon manufactured products nowadays. Of course, they also have their own logistic and distribution systems. So both way, it is a kind of vertical diversification where both backward and forward integration is taking place. Okay, now, so moving ahead, the next one in the category of various types of projects is a term called turnkey projects, right? Turnkey projects. I guess you might have heard of this term, turnkey projects. So what exactly is a turnkey project? As the name itself is turnkey, means you turn a key. So when it happens actually, when some project is complete, right, then you turn the key and just start its operation. That's why it's called turnkey projects. So in what situations these kind of turnkey projects are given? Actually, turnkey projects are a kind of contract, right, under which a firm agrees to fully design, construct, and equip a manufacturing business or service facility and turn the project over to the purchaser when it is ready for operation for a price. So this first paragraph gives you the best definition of a turnkey project. Now, let me give you some examples of turnkey projects, maybe hypothetical, but similar things happen. See, turnkey project can be like this. Suppose, let us take a case of a company like BHEL, right? BHEL. Let us say BHEL is trying to have a thermal power plant at some place, right? But they thought that they will not handle it themselves because maybe they do not have enough expertise in that, do not have manpower, technology know-how. So they will float some tender for a turnkey project, right, of that thermal power plant. So there will be many parties or many companies which will intend to do that project and they will apply for that tender. Again, let us assume a hypothetical situation that a company like L&T got that tender, right? L&T got that tender to handle that thermal power plant at some location, right? Then what happens? It will be considered as a turnkey project if the BHEL will set a price that at the end of the project, this is the budget we have and I will pay this much, right? And I have nothing to share with you except the money, right? You handle everything. Starting from the planning of the project to execution, and finally, when the project is over, you call us, we'll check the specification and the condition or status of the project. Then if you are satisfied, then we'll accept the project and you will hand over the key. So that's why it is a turnkey. So finally, means there will be a handover of project, and the turnkey means you turn the key and the project will be started functioning. So this way, turnkey projects are done. So there are two parties always involved in a turnkey project, right? One is the client. Client is BHEL in this case, right? One is the client. The other is the supplier. Supplier is the L&T in this case, right? So there will be two parties. So one company who is funding it, the client, because he is paying for that. That's the that is the funding company. The other is executing, right, and supplying the project, right. So this way, many obviously turnkey projects are used for projects which are in large scale, which are big in scale. Usually the small scale projects cannot be a turnkey project. So the kind of example I gave, like a thermal power plant or projects of that nature, that scale, can be considered as turnkey projects, right? So turnkey projects for plants involve a complete bouquet of services, right from designing to commissioning of the plant and machinery at client's facility. In fact, the client should be able just to turn the key. So client is the company who is funding it, right? So just to turn the key. Synonyms for the term turnkey projects are turnkey solution, turnkey delivery, or ready to use. So these are some of the synonyms based on type of project. For example, if the projects are usually some kind of solution providing, like IT based or some other consultancy projects, then instead of calling it turnkey projects, you can call it turnkey solution or turnkey delivery, right? Or ready to use. So these are some synonyms, but more popularly it is known as turnkey. Engineering, procurement and construction, EPC solutions, is similar to turnkey project. This is another synonym which is also used in place of turnkey solutions, that is EPC, engineering, procurement and construction, because these are the functions that supplier is doing. For example, L&T as a supplier will do the engineering part. Engineering means here the design part. Design is sometimes, I mean, engineering term is sometimes used as a synonym of designing, remember. So engineering, procurement means all the material procurement, right? So the need of the material, the bill of the material, and its purchasing, procurement. So that function will be done by the supplier. And finally, the construction, or it's also called the commissioning. So all these functions are performed by the company. So who is paying the for the budget? I mean, the project has nothing to worry about it, right? They will just visit at the end that whether it is as per our need and specification or not. Otherwise, the whole burden, the whole problem is handled by the second party, the supplier, in this case L&T. So this way many turnkey projects happens. So this is one class of or one type of project. In turnkey project, the supplier takes on complete responsibility, as I said. The responsibility, the risk is borne by the supplier, right? If anything happens in between, so it will be loss, but that loss will be borne by the supplier, right? Because the cost of the project is fixed at the beginning itself, and based on which you have accepted the invited tender. Okay, so responsibility or the adherence to delivery dates. Of course, each and every project must have some time specification, delivery date. So if you are not following that schedule, delivery date, so there will be some consequences. The scope, we'll discuss something which is called the scope. Scope means the boundary of the project, what exactly to be delivered. And the cost of the entire subject of delivery to the customer. So these are all responsibilities or constraints are borne by the supplier. So who is the supplier? Supplier is the company which is taking up that project and handling it. So there are many companies which just look for these kind of turnkey projects. For example, again, L&T. So what they do, they try to look for what are the various tenders or these kind of contracts are being offered by various companies, so that they can take that, get that, and deliver that. So in the process, they will make the profit. So they are called project oriented companies, project based companies. even there are some companies which are also project based, but not of this nature. For example, a company like Mecon comes to my mind. Mecon, you must be knowing company, head office in Ranchi, Mecon. So they are also project-based companies. Reason is that although they are not physically delivering the product, but they will provide the technical or engineering consultancy services for various projects, right? So they used to take these projects from other manufacturers. Maybe they might have at the same time many projects going on simultaneously, or the projects from maybe some private companies or maybe from state companies, like they may have some projects from steel plant Bhilai or some other steel plant. So they used to get these kind of problems or which are projects for them. They will provide the design, the engineering solution. So it is a kind of providing engineering consultancy to the problem, right? And again, another example coming to my mind, recently, maybe 2-3 months back, BIT Mesra campus has undergone a big change in its electrical system, right? I don't know the exact detail of the specification and things, but what I know, it was a project, big project, of course, a multi-crore project to change the electrical supply system. And a Siemens company was involved in it, right? Siemens. So, so this particular project of BIT Mesra is a project of Siemens, but the technical input, the engineering input was also provided by Mecon, right? So it may be considered as a turnkey project, right? So BIT Mesra is the client, so they will provide that, okay, these are our requirements, these are specifications, scopes of our need, and you provide all this, you commission it, you design it, you procure the required materials, you commission, and finally we'll turn the key, right? So it is a turnkey. We'll turn the key, and if it works, the rest of the payments will be cleared. So this way it works, right? The customer thus is not affected by any risks inside the project, and the result of the project is covered by one agreement, right? That is what I said. All the responsibility is borne by the supplier, right? So for example, in that electricity related project of BIT Mesra, if something happens during the process, BIT Mesra is not bothered because they are only bothered about the output and the final payment. So compared to that, if BIT Mesra is handling the project themselves using their own manpower, using their own materials, purchasing everything, designing it, then we can understand what is the difference. Anything goes wrong, it is the responsibility of them, or they have to bear it. But when it is a turnkey project, they have nothing to worry. So this way it works. So some examples you can see here, turnkey projects. L&T to set up a 1300 crore turnkey project for ONGC. Something like this you might have seen if you will go through some economic or financial articles. L&T Power offers turnkey solutions for large coal-based power plant projects up to 100 megawatt based on ultra supercritical standards. So these things happen, and these are coming under turnkey projects, because there you will find that there are two parties are involved. Then you can call it as a turnkey project. Two parties. One is the client who is paying for it, and another is the service provider or the supplier. So between these two parties, there will be one understanding or agreement, and based on it, it works. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so these are some classes of projects. Then, of course, we have something called Greenfield project. Greenfield project. This class of projects comes under when you are starting a project at a completely new area or new land, right? Completely green. That name itself is green. A greenfield project is one that lacks constraints imposed by prior work on the site. Typically, what a greenfield project entails is development of a completely vacant site. Architects start completely from scratch. For example, Coal India identifies 15 greenfield projects for investment of around 34,600 crore. This is a news article of September 2020. Mahindra and Mahindra manufacturing 10,000 tractors annually at its two US-based greenfield projects in Atlanta and Texas. See, what is the meaning here of greenfield? Again, you will find this term if we'll look into some business news articles. Greenfield project is that project which is started from a completely new land. Means there is no earlier setups or infrastructural facilities at that point, at that location. That is a greenfield actually. Suppose a completely barren land is used to start a new power plant or steel plant. So that is called a greenfield project, right? Because nothing was there. So as it is mentioned here, the architects start completely from scratch. The design, I mean, the architectural design of that project will start from a complete virgin land, green land, and there is no infrastructural backup at that land also. Means even you have to design for water supply, you have to design for road communication, you have to design for electricity or internet communication, everything. So that is a greenfield project. But compared to that, there is another term which is called brownfield project. Brownfield. Again, as your color is brown. Brown means there is already some infrastructural facility. There is already maybe some defunct project, obsolete, I mean, abandoned project. But on that land, you are again starting a project. So that becomes a brownfield project. It's not completely green, right? So when a project developed on an undeveloped land is a greenfield project. A brownfield project is one that is developed on land that is already used, right? Because it happens in this kind of business that suppose some company left the country. For example, this Ford left its manufacturing facility in Chennai, or General Motor left its Gujarat plant. So that becomes a brownfield project, right? So what happens to that plant? They have abandoned it. Now suppose this General Motor, they sold their plant at Gujarat to MG Motors, which is of course owned by China-based SAIC Motors. So they will use that plant for their manufacturing, right? So already there are many things are there. They will not make it completely, I mean, they will not level it. There is already some facilities are there, right, which are used sometime. So they have to, the next user have to just renovate it, right, redevelop it, right? So that becomes a brownfield project. But compared to a greenfield project, the brownfield project will have some infrastructural support. There may be already electricity, there may be already some residential houses, there may be water supply and things like that. So that becomes a brownfield project, right? Sometimes, depending on the nature of the project, maybe that land might have been contaminated by industrial wastes or hazardous wastes, right? Depending on the type of project. Suppose earlier it was a chemical plant, right? Then that land must have to be again retreated to make it usable for your kind of applications. So that is some problems with brownfield projects. But maybe the next example is, for example, for automobiles. So if already it was automobile manufacturer, then it is easy to take over as a automobile manufacturer, as it happens from GM to MG Motors. Okay. So a brownfield site was once a commercially developed parcel, but currently not in use for any purpose. It was abandoned because the owner has left the country or something happened. Such brownfield land parcels are found mostly in Western countries, which have been used for oil refineries, railroads, gas stations, or heavy manufacturing plants. Abandoned oil refineries, chemical factories, and heavy manufacturing units are some examples of brownfield sites. Brownfield project can be cheaper because vital infrastructure like drainage, electricity, roads, transport networks may already exist. So compared to a greenfield, as I said, in a greenfield you have to start from scratch and there is nothing is there. So maybe you have to first develop the land, make it leveled, and have all the basic infrastructural needs like water, electricity, and everything. So compared to a brownfield project, a greenfield project investment will be bit more. In a brownfield investment project, the company either invests in existing facilities and infrastructure through merger and acquisition deal, or leases existing facilities in the foreign countries. So these things happen actually. Suppose you have some merger with some other company and they have some abandoned or brownfield projects, then you may have to take over that and work on that. That happens. Or you may take on lease also, some kind of brownfield project which is not working, but you are taking on a lease. Again, some real life stories related with this. Tata Motors in 2008 acquired Jaguar Land Rover's business in an all-cash transaction valued this billion. Through the acquisition, the Indian automaker, means Tata Motor, was able to obtain the IPR, manufacturing plants, 2 design centers in UK, and a world-renowned network of national sales companies. So this is an example of a brownfield project, right? You all know that Tata Motors acquired these Jaguars in 2008 in UK, and what they got? They got these manufacturing plants, IPR and design centers. So they will work on that, right? They may redesign them, they may again start their manufacturing with some value addition to that. So that becomes a brownfield project, not a greenfield project. A brownfield investment is a type of foreign FDI where a company invests in an existing facility to start its operations in a foreign country. In other words, a brownfield investment is the lease or purchase of a pre-existing facility in a foreign country. So don't forget, we are discussing about projects, types of projects. So again, the project that we are talking about, it can be greenfield project or it can be brownfield project. It depends that what nature of project you are handling. So in many cases, because of these reasons, as I am saying, suppose you are diversifying into a new field or you are acquiring some company in foreign land. So their property, their assets you will take over. So in their assets, that the company which you have taken over, in their assets, if there is some plants, then that becomes your property. But that plant may not be exactly usable. You may have to work on it. So that becomes a brownfield project. Okay, I think now I should stop here. Do you have anything to add? Basically, it acquires the land, right? Acquires the land, and most of the disputes happen at that point. There may be some cultivation land, there may be some inhabitations, so they have to be rehabilitated. So that is the example of a greenfield project. Many examples come to my mind. For example, there's the infamous nano plant in West Bengal. So there was a lot of problems, and ultimately they shifted to Gujarat. But these are the examples where some, and there are many disputes. You will find that these mining companies, they try to start a new mining in area, and people resist it. They are greenfield projects, right? They are greenfield projects. Okay. So with this, I'll stop here today. Thank you.